The Paleo Diet. Yes, that was a diet that really went popular or got popular years ago. I remember when this was like a really big thing. You and I both know that I'm not really a big fan of what's considered the paleo diet, the colloquial definition. In fact, I'm in favor of a species-appropriate, species-specific diet, which is a variation of a carnivore diet with very minimal variation between different people of that diet. And I've already covered, the nuance there. There's not too much nuance, but there is some. So anyway, this doesn't change the fact that the paleo diet still has some, at least the philosophy behind why the paleo diet is a proper diet for humans. There is some credence that you can lend towards it. It was it was the start of people realizing, oh, well, maybe we should all eat the same that's evolutionarily consistent. It was a start of approximating what that diet would be, the one that our genes are most evolved to withstand and are most experienced and adapted to. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I can't remember who it was. I need to start screenshotting comments. I really do. Someone told me that I should react to the Paleolithic diet on Wikipedia, the Wikipedia sort of entry for Paleolithic diet. And so I think this will be very entertaining because we all know that Wikipedia has a bias. We all know that it has a bias. It'll call people pseudoscientists and, anti-science deniers just for expressing differing opinions and actually expressing that the science can't inform too much on anything. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look here, okay? So we're going to start the screen recording here just so that you guys know exactly what I'm looking at. Okay, the Paleolithic diet. All right, this article is about a modern day diet. Well, interesting, because the philosophy is that it's a prehistoric diet. But okay, for information on the dietary practices of Paleolithic humans, see Paleolithic diet and nutrition. Okay. The Paleolithic diet, Paleo diet, caveman diet, or Stone Age diet is a modern fad diet. Well, unfortunately, it basically was. This is the first time that it was we were trying to approximate an evolutionarily consistent diet, a species-appropriate diet. So I'm trying to give it some grace here, and I'm trying to, play both sides. Well, again, I'm not trying to play both sides. I'm actively just trying to purvey the truth. So there's truth on both of these ends. You can say that's a modern fad diet, so it's a way of putting it. Yes, fine. Consisting of foods thought by its proponents to mirror those eaten by humans during the Paleolithic era. Yes, except for the fact that most of those foods they weren't ancestrally consistent. They weren't eaten by our ancestors. In fact, one of the things on a paleo diet that you can do is eat a bunch of maple syrup, apparently, and honey and fruit and lots of vegetables. Not all vegetables, but lots of them. The diet avoids food processing. Yes, okay, well, that's a plus, isn't it? Ultra processing is a big part of that, and typically includes vegetables, fruits, nuts, roots, and meat. Yeah, exactly. That you shouldn't be consuming vegetables or fruits or nuts or roots. Okay, roots is the most accurate, evolutionarily speaking, out of all the foods that they say is, consistent with our anthropology or something. However, the roots today are nothing like they were before. I mean, sweet potato is a root vegetable, and wow, the starch. Wow, I should take a picture at the grocery store whenever we go tomorrow of the sweet potatoes there. The size of them. They are massive, okay? Our ancestors were not eating those, okay? And excludes dairy products, yes. Grains, yes. Sugar, no, it doesn't. It excludes the concentrated, processed, extracted versions of sugar, okay? But there's sugar in root vegetables. There's sugar in fruits. There's some sugar in vegetables depending on which one you get, like I was just alluding to there. So no. Legumes, good. Yeah. So all these things should be excluded for the most part. I've made my opinions clear on dairy. It's the most innocuous here, okay? Processed oils, yeah, there you go. Salt. Oh, okay. Well, I've had this argument before with people. We did seek salt out. It doesn't mean we ate a ton of it, but most animals will seek salt out at some point. Okay. By the way, I'm not saying it's required. So don't think that I'm telling you that you need to eat. So, I mean, it's not required. Anthony Chaffee, for example, doesn't seem to require salt, and that's fine. Good. I feel like that's pretty convenient. Okay, but salt, I can see the argument there, but no. Alcohol, well, good. And coffee. Yeah, so all these things, you can see why people would see benefits on a paleo diet. Historians can trace the ideas behind the diet to primitive diets advocated in the 19th century. Right, but it doesn't matter. In the 1970s, Walter L. Vogelin nailed that. popularized a meat-centric Stone Age diet. In the 21st century, the best-selling books of Lauren Cordain popularized the Paleo Diet. As of 2019, the Paleolithic diet industry was worth approximately $500 million US. Cool. If only that were me. Okay, in the 21st century, the sequencing of the human genome and DNA analysis of the remains of anatomically modern humans. Okay, I'm just going to stop right here before I even see what they have to say about this. Which humans? You can cherry pick any human. All right, you really can. But what's really important is that it precedes the agricultural revolution because, well, the Paleolithic diet is specifically, in terms of its ideology, it's approximating pre-agricultural times. Okay? So anyway, the sequencing of the human genome and DNA analysis of the remains of the anatomically modern humans, okay, have found evidence that humans evolved rapidly in response to changing diet. Well, so what? Yeah, great. In fact, by the way, if people are curious, human beings are very interesting in our ability to adapt phenotypically to things. The degree to which we can phenotypically adapt to things. We are the most adaptable creatures identified, compared to at least compared to other mammals. It's very interesting. It's convenient as well, okay? We are highly capable of adaptation, more than other animals are. So what that means is that it's the entire reason why humans can go years eating a vegan diet, for example, and seem to be in at least optimal health, or at least approximating something that's a healthy stature, okay, an affect in the world. It doesn't mean it's appropriate, but it means our ability to adapt to a species inappropriate diet seems to be far greater than another species eating a species inappropriate diet, which is cool. It's convenient, but it doesn't mean that we should be consuming, a species inappropriate diet, like it just means you can get away with a little more fine, but should you? Anyway, this evidence undermines a core premise of the Paleolithic diet. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So humans evolved rapidly in response to changing diet. Well, do you mean like genotypically evolved? Did our entire genotype evolve to a point where we're extremely capable of withstanding plant toxins and exogenous carbohydrates in hundreds of grams every single day? Because there's some ambiguity there. I'll tell you that much right now. This evidence undermines the core premise of the Paleolithic diet. So no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That human digestion has remained essentially unchanged over time. Well, is our digestive tract different across the entirety of our species? To any significant degree at all? Do we all have appendices or appendixes? I don't know. The answer is yes, which is an indication that our plant consumption was very low, okay? I mean, right there is an inference that, okay, we're hypercarnivores. And the reason for that is, because from that logic alone, one might say, well, okay, fine, we weren't eating a lot of fiber. Because the only reason why we'd have an evolutionary pressure to maintain a large cecum like other primates is that if we're eating lots of plant material in the form of fiber, okay? Because that's what a cecum is for. So the fact that we have an appendix means, okay, well, maybe we weren't eating a lot of fiber, but it doesn't exclude the possibility that we were eating lots of carbohydrates. Well, let's think about it this way. What herbivore in the wild and what mammal in the wild consumes a large portion of their diet, or really any to speak of at all, in the form of carbohydrates, excluding fiber? The answer is basically none. You can find animals like nectarivores that do. I've talked about this before. They consume simple sugars, okay, to a significant enough of an amount to make it to where their primary oxidative source of fuel is pyruvate from glucose. Okay, from sugar. But almost no mammal, if any mammal at all, in the wild consumes simple sugars for fuel. They use fat for fuel, okay, because they ferment the fiber into fatty acids. So that's the first thing. Not to mention that the foods available that have simple carbohydrates that are easily digestible and would cause us to be, oxidizing glucose primarily, it would shift us from fat burning, quote unquote, to glucose burning, quote unquote, is slim to none. They only became prevalent during the agricultural revolution, which occurred about 13,000 years ago, which is not a sufficient enough time to cause us to have a genotypic adaptation to the degree that it would be indicated to be consuming hundreds of grams of carbohydrates a day. Not true. Our efficiency for gluconeogenesis is still very high, that of hypercarnivores. We're done. Okay. So anyway, yeah, do we have a significantly differing digestive tract across our species? No? Okay. I find that very interesting. Okay. So no, you're trying to falsify a claim that our human digestion has remained essentially unchanged over time, except for the fact that it has, anatomically speaking. Okay, we're done. Paleoanthropological evidence has indicated, okay, what do you mean by evidence? Do you mean chemical anthropology or do you mean observational paleoanthropology? Okay, has indicated that prehistoric humans ate plant-heavy diets. No. First of all, prehistoric is, I believe it's referencing pre-agricultural revolution. Okay, plants are toxic to human beings. Okay, you go out into the wild and you're trying to eat a bush of berries or any plant, there's a high chance that you are going to be poisoned and potentially die, okay? Most of the plants that exist in supermarkets today are man-made in the first place, okay? And for the ones that aren't man-made and actually go back hundreds of thousands of years, if that's, what we're talking about here, those have been hybridized and grafted to such a degree that they are basically a perversion of their original forms, okay? They're supplying us with things that they never used to supply us before. So they have a pressure on our genes. They're putting a pressure on our genes that were not put on our genes from the same versions of those foods way before human intervention. Okay, stable nitrogen and carbon isotope analyses conducted on the collagen of the long bones of ancient human remains actually point regularly, repeatedly, to a point of predictability all across the world, so not just in a focal region, that human beings had higher carnivore ratings than that of lions, wolves, foxes, and hyenas, if you're going to talk about an evolutionarily consistent diet. Okay, we ate more meat than them, and we actually ate them because we hunted them. Okay. We have eyes in the front of our heads because we're predators. Okay? Our ability to throw like this, our fucking shoulder, our cuff here, rotator cuff. Okay? There's a lot of evolutionary inferences that we can make, all right? That regularly included grains and other starchy vegetables. Okay, so you're talking about prehistoric humans and then you said grains in the same sentence. Things that we only cultivated during the agricultural revolution. So right back to my point. And other starchy vegetables. Yeah, like what? Before human intervention took over. Like what? Now. In contrast to the claims made by proponents of the Paleolithic diet. Oh, well, great. Okay, so you really falsified that, huh? Paleoanthropological evidence. And then they give a bunch of citations here. Science debunks a misleading myth about the paleo diet. What did people eat for dinner tens of thousands of years ago? Many advocates of the paleo diet will tell you that our ancestors' plates were heavy on meat and low on carbohydrates. Yes, which is why our efficiency for gluconeogenesis is very high. It's why our anatomy points in the direction of, hypercarnivore. Okay? Efficiency for gluconeogenesis, extremely high, that of hypercarnivores. Digestive tract, eyes at the front of our head, our ability to throw things like this. Okay? I'm being very simplistic here. I mean, those are the three main things, and then stable nitrogen and carbon isotope analyses. So there you go. And that, as a result, we have evolved to thrive on this type of nutritional regimen. Yes, correct. With very minimal variation, because yes, humans are very ubiquitous, so there can be some variation. I've talked about this before. I know that people don't like nuance, but it exists. Okay? The diet is named after the Paleolithic era, a period dating from about 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago. Well, that's a very large range, isn't it? And also 10,000 years ago is too recent, okay? When early humans were hunting and gathering rather than farming. Herman Poncer, an evolutionary anthropologist at Duke University and author of Burn, a book about the science of metabolism, says it's a myth that everyone of this time subsisted on meat-heavy diets. Well, first of all, again, with the large range, so it doesn't mean that everyone during this time was subsisting off that, because again, the agricultural revolution occurred approximately 13,000 years ago, and therefore some people were absolutely subsisting on plants only. Okay? Studies show, guys, we haven't heard that before, that rather than a single diet, prehistoric people's eating habits were remarkably variable and were influenced by a number of factors such as climate, location, and season. Correct. Absolutely correct, which is why there's nuance and variation. But if you compare our digestive tracts, our gluconeogenic efficiency, okay, and our overall affect, eyes at the front of our heads, throwing things, etc., they're all the same. Most importantly, the first two things, okay? The lack of an atrophy of those things, okay, all across the board. So there might be some variation, okay? Some people might need about 20 grams of carbs, some people 0, done. And I think the latter is most people. But it doesn't mean that we have completely different diets, okay? There's also another fallacy here. You're going to say, oh, well, people have totally different diets, which you already covered. I just finished off by saying, no, that's not true. However, if you're going to say, well, people grew up in different regions, so they've actually evolved to eat different diets, well, wouldn't you then say that they should consume that diet that you think they're most adapted to then? Instead, you're using this to justify them being able to eat any diet, just because, well, humans can adapt, though. Yeah, just because we can doesn't mean that it's a risk every time. I did a video on this recently. I don't think it hasn't premiered yet or uploaded. I don't do premieres anymore. Uploaded. But I talked about this. It's a risk. In the 2021 Annual Review of Nutrition, Poncer and his colleagues, Brian Wood of the University of California, Los Angeles, describe what we can learn about the eating habits of our ancestors by studying modern hunter-gatherer populations like the Hadza in northern Tanzania and the Aceh in Paraguay. I don't know. now in an interview. Yeah, well, frankly, the Hadza consume meat-heavy diets along with honey. Fantastic. Fantastic. I wonder what their efficiency for gluconeogenesis is, and I wonder if there's any requirement for honey in their diet. And I wonder if they only do that because in their specific region, they have lots of honey available. Is the overall consensus that all of us had ubiquitous access to honey regularly on a daily basis? Historically speaking. Is that true? Jesus. We're not the Hadza, are we? Which is, in a way, it's their point, which is, oh, well, we can all adapt to the same, we all adapt to what, what's around us. But it's like, well, yes, correct. But what are we most adapted to eating right now? According to what am I the most adapted to eating right now? And what is the overall consensus? Well, a carnivorous diet. So just because we can adapt to things like, I don't know, carbohydrates, ubiquitous carbohydrates, because, well, that's the environment that we're in, doesn't mean that we ought to. The Hadza seems like they have to, okay? And also, I mean, the honey's there, and they're not thinking about this in the way that we do. The honey's there, and they're going to eat it because, tastes good. Okay, I'm not calling them stupid. I'm just saying they don't think that way, all right? They still eat lots of meat, do they not? At the end of the day, explains what makes the Hadza surprisingly seasonal, diverse diet so different from popular notions of ancient meals. Okay, so one population, good. This interview has been edited for length and clarity. Well, I'm sorry, dude. I'm not gonna read the entire thing. I'm really not gonna read the entire thing. Let's finish up this article because I'm really just trying to finish this up. People can think of that as an evasion all they want. Fine. It's just because I'm trying to get through this. I really am. I'd be here all day. They listed 5 citations. Advocates promote the Paleolithic diet as a way of improving health. Well, okay, fine. I'm sure that it probably has some effects like that. There's some evidence that following it may lead to improvements in body composition and metabolism compared with the typical Western diet, or compared with diets recommended by some European nutritional guidelines. Okay, and also may not. There's really no evidence to support the health benefits of anything. Okay? On the other hand, following the diet can lead to nutritional deficiencies. Okay, as according to who on the basis of what? RDAs and RDIs, which are the recommended daily allowances according to who on the basis of what? What populations, consuming what diet? Great. Such as an inadequate calcium intake. Okay, so according to who on the basis of what? Again, we're going to keep asking this question. And side effects can include weakness, diarrhea, and headaches. Okay, so such as basically the things that can happen when you are consuming any diet overnight, a different diet overnight. If you change your diet overnight, you can have gut microbiome disruptions, and also it can basically put your body's hormonal systems into shock, like insulin and stuff like that, if you're consuming less sugar than usual. Weakness, well, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're not consuming a lot of carbohydrates on the diet. I don't know. Diarrhea, yeah, again, gut microbiome disruption. And headaches, well, again, we already covered that with the electrolyte disturbance thing. Okay, basically, I'm reading the intro, and we already know that the history and terminology, I don't really care about that. Foodstuffs, the basis of the diet is a reimagining of what Paleolithic people ate, and different proponents recommend different diet compositions. You see that? Okay, because they're basing it off of observational paleoanthropology. What you could do is just do chemical paleoanthropology, and also observe our efficiency for gluconeogenesis. Observe our digestive system, okay? Like, instead emphasizes animal products and avoidance of processed foods. The Paleolithic prescription with Marjorie Shostak described a diet that is 65% plant-based. Oh, yes, so it's just all over the place. Foodstuffs that have been described as permissible include vegetables, fruits, nuts, roots, meat, and organ meats. Vegetables, including root vegetables, fruit, including fruit oils, e.g. olive oil, coconut oil, and palm oil, nuts, fish, meat, and eggs, and it excluded dairy, grain-based foods, legumes, extra sugar, and nutritional products. Okay, so basically, I think we're pretty much done here. Knowledge of the relative proportions of animal and plant foods in the diets of early humans is circumstantial, incomplete, and debatable, and that there are insufficient data to identify the composition of a genetically determined optimal diet. Well, no, there isn't, because we have chemical anthropology. I'm pretty sure they're just going to repeat themselves. The introduction usually does a good job of summarizing everything. Look, like I said in the beginning, the paleo diet was a start to approximating our species-appropriate diet. Now we have started to think that way. It started to get us to think that way about, how we should be eating instead of referring to human nutrition science. And now we've made more accurate composite inferences based on biochemistry, our comparative anatomy, chemical paleoanthropology, even physics when it comes to calories and stuff like that. And I think there might be more, but really that's it in a way. There's other inferences that don't really fit into a category per se. There's like just side little nuggets of information that you could put together. And that culminated, for me at least, in my book, Contrainidicated. If you haven't bought that, second edition out now, link in the description below for paperback, hardcover, and audiobook versions. Go ahead and refer to the video that I did in regards to the ebook availability for people that are wanting an ebook. Trust me, I am trying to get that out, but it's just a matter of time. Today is May 2nd for me, so it's way later than it was supposed to be. But anyway, that pretty much summarizes why our species-appropriate, species-specific diet is a carnivore diet with very minimal carbohydrates, really none to speak of at all. So anyway, you can also binge my channel if you'd like. That's also an option. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and also subscribe to the Patreon if you haven't already to gain access to 1 week early uploads, ad-free content, uncensored content, and an exclusive Discord server for, exclusive mingling amongst exclusive fans. Sometimes I pop in. I'm pretty busy, so I'm not in there all the time. But also, finally, the link on the bottom of the screen. Where'd that come from? What is that link? Well, that is a link that will bring you to an amazing site with amazing products from an amazing brand known as Cerule. If you purchase product through that link, you will get a permanent percentage discount and permanent free shipping when signing up for monthly deliveries. And also you can email me behind the scenes at edgoki@pm.me, new email, to learn how to earn those products for free, because who in their right mind wouldn't want that? But I would never recommend buying products like these without knowing what they are first. So fortunately for you, I have a video linked in the top right corner of the screen, the Cerule Products link, which is a complete video elucidation and explanation of what these products are, who should take them, why you should take them, when to take them, etc., etc. And I'd also further migrate to the description below to find a video between myself and Professor Bart K on these products in further detail, as well as the company of Cerule itself, which I think is incredibly important if you are willing to, purchase product through the link in the first place. So with that being said, join me next time when we react to someone else another article that is just full of a bunch of misinformation or a bunch of half-truths and cherry-picked information, or we're reacting to someone that is completely ridiculous and doesn't know what they're talking about, analyzing another study, me monologuing towards the camera. I just anything. Look forward to that. So till then.